So the next method, so that was the third one. The next method is the eclectic method. Now, maybe I'll wait because the eclectic method kind of combines a bunch of different methods. So maybe I'll talk about one of the other ones first. Yes. Yeah, the next one I'm going to talk about is the Charlotte Mason approach, the living books approach. So this is the fourth one. The Charlotte Mason was an educator in England at the turn of the century. She had several schools, and she offered a correspondence school for parents teaching their children at home. So she was a contemporary of Maria Montessori. But unlike Montessori, she felt that children did not need a carefully planned environment, but instead, she felt that they needed to use real life experiences. She felt that children needed plenty of time to explore, imagine, and create. She emphasized the humanities, the development of good habits and character, time outdoors, and living books. And she would say that the teacher should not get between the child and the author of the book. So the child should only be presented with the very best literature, written by people who are passionate about their subject matter. There are not very many curriculum providers for this method either. And part of it is because it's living books, basically living books. And a living book is a book that embodies just what I had said about what Charlotte Mason felt was important, which is that a living book is a book that is written by a person passionate about their subject matter, an expert, someone who loves what they're talking about. Like reading a book by Rachel Carson about the environment and pollution and things, or reading a book by Jane Goodall about gorillas, someone who's passionate about their subject. And because someone who's passionate about it, the passion, you can hear it in the writing. You can read it in there. And that passion then, it gets kind of passed along to the reader. There are well-written children's books that are like that. And then, of course, there are autobiographies and biographies and things like that that really give a feel for the person that wrote the book. So, it's a curriculum, any kind of curriculum that is living books or Charlotte Mason based is basically a teacher's guide telling you what books to read and when. So they're basically helping you choose the very best books, but it's their opinion of what the very best books are. So, and they're just helping you to move through those books. That's really what they're doing. So some of those are things like sunlight.com. They don't say they're Charlotte Mason, but it's a living books curriculum. My Father's World, which is a little bit of Charlotte Mason blended with some classical stuff. Livingbookscurriculum.com. And then there are some books that help you to implement this on your own. Charlotte Mason Study Guide by Penny Gardner, A Charlotte Mason Education by Catherine Levison, Charlotte Mason Primer by Cindy Rushton, and the classic from Susan McCauley, For the Children's Sake. I also know of a free online resource, Ambleside Online, that has a full Charlotte Mason curriculum. They also will have links to the original Charlotte Mason books. Excellent reading, very good reading, those books. And they have links to all of the Project Gutenberg free public domain books that are very well written if you choose to use those books. There are some of the problems with using Charlotte Mason are kind of the same as with the classical method, which is that sometimes your child has a little bit too much of the old books and has a hard time being able to converse and relate to other young people their age. If you think that is a problem, some people think that is a big problem. It makes it challenging to make friends sometimes. But the pros of Charlotte Mason are that, of course, they stress good character and habits. There's no busy work in Charlotte Mason. She never has children do things just to do them, or just for excessive practice, or just to have something to put in the binder. Everything that she would recommend is for a purpose, and it always uses real objects, real books, and real experiences. It also encourages curiosity, critical thinking, and a love of learning, a lot similar to a classical method. And to be honest, Charlotte Mason did borrow a lot of her ideas from the classical method of learning. And her high school version, the high school version of Charlotte Mason looks a lot like a classical education. That's evident in her books. And it's also very developmentally appropriate. She tells you exactly what to do at each age. And what a 6-year-old should know, what a 10-year-old should know. So there's some benchmarks there, but of course they are benchmarked to her time period in which she lived and wrote. Remember, she is a contemporary of Maria Montessori. Sometimes there is an overemphasis on the humanities, and sometimes the hard sciences get a little bit neglected because it's all literature and art and nature study and things like that. So keeping that in mind and balancing things out. But the children are very active participants and do the object, again, like the classical method, is lifelong learners. So it's not the unit study method, it's not the textbook method, but there are some similarities with the classical method, but it's a little bit less scholarly than the classical method and more emphasis on real life and time in nature and time outdoors and learning handicrafts and laying a foundation of good habits and character. Whereas the classical method is more scholarly and more of an emphasis on classics and learning classic skills.